The silence that followed my sister's ultimatum wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was strategic. While they celebrated their supposed victory downstairs, planning renovations to my master bedroom, I sat in what they designated as my new quarters, the converted garage, and pulled up the property records on my laptop. 23 years of mortgage payments, every single one with my name on it. The insurance policies, the property tax receipts, the maintenance invoices. Everything filed meticulously in digital folders they didn't even know existed. My family had gotten so comfortable with the narrative that I was just the lucky one who inherited Grandma's house, they'd forgotten the most basic fact. I didn't inherit anything. I bought this house at 22, working 3 jobs while they told everyone I was wasting my youth. The irony wasn't lost on me. They moved in during what they called my crisis year, when my startup failed and I was rebuilding from zero. Mom said, family helps family. Dad said, blood is thicker than water. My brother Mark promised it would only be 6 months while his business recovered. That was 7 years ago. I scrolled through my banking app, past the automatic transfers I'd set up for their car payments, past the medical bills I'd covered without being asked, past the college fund I'd started for Mark's kids that he didn't know about. The number at the bottom made me pause. Even after everything, I could afford to let them stay. But affording something and accepting it are 2 different conversations. What would you do if your generosity became their entitlement? That's what I kept asking myself as I drafted the email to my lawyer. The response came faster than expected. Rebecca Chin had handled my contract since the startup days, and her message was characteristically precise. Your claim has no legal standing. However, I suggest we handle this strategically. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 9? I didn't sleep in the garage that night. Instead, I drove to the Marriott downtown and checked in under my company name. The suite was sterile and perfect. Nothing like the house that smelled like Mom's cooking and echoed with my nephew's laughter. But it was mine, paid for with a credit card they didn't know existed, for a company they thought had failed years ago. The next morning, Rebecca's office felt like entering a different world. Glass and steel instead of the worn hardwood of home. Her assistant brought Ethiopian coffee. She remembered from our last meeting, and we sat across from each other like generals planning a campaign. First, she said, sliding a folder across the marble table, let's establish what they don't know. The house wasn't just in my name. It was held by an LLC I'd formed 3 years ago for tax purposes. The LLC owned several properties now, all purchased quietly while my family assumed I was barely scraping by. The revelation that their rent-free arrangement was actually a charitable donation I'd been writing off was just the beginning. Your brother's business, the one he says is struggling? Public records show 3 new locations opened in the last 18 months. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Mark had been crying poverty while expanding his restaurant chain, letting me cover his kids' school expenses because times were tough. And your parents' retirement account received a significant inheritance from your aunt's estate 14 months ago, the same month they told you they couldn't contribute to utilities because of medical expenses. Each revelation felt like removing a blindfold I'd worn willingly. Love makes you stupid sometimes. Or maybe love makes you choose stupidity because the alternative, seeing clearly, means admitting the people you die for wouldn't return the favor. So, what do you want to do? Rebecca asked, her voice gentle despite the clinical environment. We can serve them with an eviction notice today. 30 days, completely legal. Or... The "or" hung in the air like a challenge. I thought about my nephew, 8 years old, who had no part in this. My niece, who was applying to colleges and listing my address as her permanent residence. They were innocent casualties in their parents' war against gratitude. I want to offer them a choice, I said finally. a real one. Rebecca smiled, the kind of smile that made opposing lawyers nervous. I was hoping you'd say that. Let me show you something interesting about property law in this state. The statute she pulled up was obscure but powerful. Under certain conditions, a property owner could transfer partial rights to residents who'd lived in the home for more than 5 years, creating a form of tenancy that was both protected and limited. It would give them security, but not ownership. Rights, but with responsibilities. Essentially, Rebecca explained, you'd be offering them the chance to become official tenants with below-market rent. They'd have protection from arbitrary eviction, but they'd also have legal obligations, maintenance responsibilities, behavioral clauses, and most importantly, recognition of your ownership. It was elegant, more generous than they deserved, but less than they demanded. The kind of compromise that revealed character. Draw it up, I said, but add one condition. The meeting to discuss this happens at your office, not the house. I want neutral ground. She nodded, already typing notes. When? Friday, 3 o'clock. And Rebecca, send the invitation through my company email, the one with the new logo. The company they thought had failed was now worth 8 figures. They were about to learn that the person they'd relegated to the garage had been running a tech consultancy from coffee shops and co-working spaces, building something they'd never bothered to ask about. I left the office feeling lighter than I had in years. Not vengeful, that's important to understand. Vengeance would have been easy. This was about something else entirely. Clarity, boundaries, the radical act of demanding respect from people who'd forgotten you deserved it. My phone buzzed with messages as word spread. Mark had seen the LLC filing online. Public records are beautiful things. Mom had called 6 times. Dad had sent a text that just said, "We need to talk." Yes, we did need to talk, but this time I wouldn't be the one explaining myself. The drive back to the Marriott was peaceful. I had 3 days to prepare for a meeting that would either rebuild our family on a foundation of truth or reveal that the foundation had never existed at all. Either outcome was better than the slow erosion of pretending everything was fine while they planned paint colors for my bedroom. That evening, I sat in the hotel suite and wrote out 2 lists. One contained everything I'd given freely over the years, not to throw in their faces, but to remind myself that my generosity had been real, even if unappreciated. The other list was shorter, but harder to write. It contained what I needed from them moving forward. Not wanted, needed. Respect for my ownership, acknowledgement of my sacrifices, partnership instead of entitlement, and truth instead of manipulation. Simple things that should have never been negotiable. My phone lit up again. This time it was my niece, asking if I was okay, saying she'd heard her parents arguing about lawyers and property deeds. I told her I was fine, that sometimes families need to have difficult conversations to become stronger. I didn't tell her that sometimes those conversations reveal that strength was never there to begin with. The meeting was in 48 hours. They'd receive the formal invitation tomorrow morning, complete with the revelation of who they'd really been living with all these years. Not the struggling little sister who got lucky with an inheritance, but the CEO who'd chosen family over comfort every single day. Until they'd chosen comfort over family. Rebecca had asked what outcome I wanted. The truth was, I wanted them to choose the tenancy agreement, to sign it with humility and gratitude, to rebuild what they'd broken. But I'd learned something important in that sterile hotel room, surrounded by the success they never noticed. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the opportunity to show you who they really are. And Friday at 3 o'clock in a law office 20 floors above the city they thought had defeated me, they'd have exactly that.